His science officer, a nervous Thylorian with 6 arms, manipulated controls with frantic precision. Admiral, the energy signature. It's human technology, but modified somehow. Enhanced beyond anything in our intelligence files. Korath's eyes narrowed to predatory slits. Humanity was supposed to be finished, their fleets scattered and their colonies conquered. How had they managed to strike at the very heart of the Empire? Begin a sector-wide sweep, Korath commanded. Whatever destroyed the Nexus is still out there. Find it and destroy it. The Phoenix Rising watched from the shadows as the Dominion fleet spread out in search patterns. Sarah allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. They had actually done it. The impossible strike had succeeded beyond their wildest hopes. But as they prepared to begin their long journey home, Lieutenant Kim looked up from her console with wide eyes. "Commander, I'm picking up a transmission. It's coming from everywhere. Someone is broadcasting on all frequencies simultaneously." Sarah frowned. "Put it on screen." The face that appeared was weathered and scarred, belonging to a man Sarah didn't recognize. But the uniform was unmistakably human. "This is Admiral Marcus Kane, speaking to all human forces scattered across the galaxy," the man said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "Today, one of our ships struck a blow that will echo across the stars. The Dominion thinks we are beaten, but they are wrong. We are humanity. We do not surrender. We do not yield, and we are far from finished." Sarah felt her heart racing. Admiral Kane had been presumed dead since the fall of the Armstrong colony 6 months ago. But if he was alive and broadcasting to the entire galaxy. The transmission continued. "To our enemies listening to this message, understand this. You have awakened something you cannot control. Every human world you have conquered, every life you have taken, every family you have torn apart. We remember it all, and we are coming for you." The message ended, leaving the bridge of the Phoenix Rising in stunned silence. Sarah realized that their mission had accomplished far more than destroying a communication hub. They had sent a message to every human in the galaxy that the fight was not over. As if in response to Kane's words, reports began flooding in from across human-occupied space. Resistance cells that had been dormant for months suddenly came alive. Sabotage attacks erupted on Dominion supply lines. Hidden weapons caches were activated. The spark that the Phoenix Rising had lit was spreading into a wildfire. Admiral Korath stood on his bridge, watching the reports pour in with growing alarm. In the space of an hour, his empire had gone from total victory to fighting a galaxy-wide insurgency, and at the center of it all was a single human ship that his most advanced sensors couldn't even detect. "How many ships do they have with this cloaking technology?" he demanded. "Unknown, Admiral," his intelligence chief replied nervously. "It could be 1 ship. It could be 1,000. We have no way of knowing." Korath felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Fear. The Dominion had conquered 100 worlds through superior technology and overwhelming force. But how do you fight an enemy you can't see? How do you defeat ghosts? The Phoenix Rising began its journey home through the chaos it had created. Behind them, the Dominion Empire scrambled to respond to threats that seemed to materialize from thin air. Phantom ships struck at convoys and vanished. Supply depots exploded without warning. Communication networks collapsed under coordinated attacks. Sarah watched the tactical display as they slipped past confused Dominion patrols. The Empire's perfect order was unraveling, replaced by paranoia and uncertainty. Every shadow could hide a human ship. Every unexplained system failure could be sabotage. "Commander," Martine said quietly, "I'm picking up reports from the outer colonies. The resistance groups are calling it the Phoenix Miracle. They're saying 1 ship changed everything." Sarah smiled grimly. Perhaps 1 ship had changed everything. But it wasn't the Phoenix Rising that had won this victory. It was the message they had carried to the galaxy. Humanity would never stop fighting. As they entered the final jump toward Earth, Sarah made a decision that would reshape the war. Instead of returning home to refit and hide, they would continue their mission. The Phoenix Rising would become a legend, a ghost ship that struck without warning and vanished without trace. The Empire thought the war was over. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The ghost in the machine. The war was over. Everyone knew it, even if nobody wanted to say it out loud. Earth's Grand Fleet had been crushed at the Battle of Titan's Gate 3 months ago. 90% of human colonies had fallen to the Dominion Empire. The remaining human forces were scattered, broken, and running on fumes. But in a secret facility buried deep beneath the lunar surface, something impossible was about to happen. Commander Sarah Chen stood in the hangar bay, staring at the sleek black hull of the ship that wasn't supposed to exist. The Phoenix Rising looked more like a shadow than a starship. Its hull absorbed light rather than reflecting it, and strange energy patterns danced across its surface like ripples on dark water. "The quantum cloaking field is holding steady," reported Chief Engineer Martinez, his voice tight with nervous energy. "But Commander, we've never tested this technology in actual combat conditions." Sarah nodded grimly. The Phoenix Rising was humanity's last desperate gamble. Built using alien technology reverse-engineered from captured Dominion ships, it represented years of secret research that had cost Earth its best scientists and nearly bankrupted what remained of their military budget. "How long can we maintain the cloak?" Sarah asked. "In theory, indefinitely. The quantum field generator draws power from subspace itself, but if we take damage to the primary array..." Martinez shrugged helplessly. Sarah understood. One lucky shot, and they would materialize in the middle of enemy space with no way home. It was a suicide mission disguised as a reconnaissance run. "All hands to battle stations," Sarah announced over the ship's communication system. "We launch in 10 minutes." The Phoenix Rising slipped away from Luna like a whisper in the void. Earth fell behind them, scared and wounded but still defiant. Sarah watched her homeworld shrink in the view screen and wondered if she would ever see it again. Their destination was the Zephyr system, the crown jewel of the Dominion Empire. It housed the primary communication nexus that coordinated military operations across 50 star systems. If they could destroy it, the Empire would be temporarily blind and deaf across half the galaxy. The journey took 18 hours. As they approached the edge of the Zephyr system, the tactical display lit up with contacts. Hundreds of Dominion warships patrolled the outer perimeter. Massive battle stations bristled with weapons that could vaporize a human cruiser with a single shot. "Sensors show no reaction to our presence," reported Lieutenant Kim from the sensor station. "The quantum cloak is working perfectly." Sarah felt a surge of hope mixed with terror. They were actually invisible to the most advanced detection systems in the galaxy. But that also meant they were completely alone, cut off from any hope of rescue or support. The Phoenix Rising glided through the Dominion fleet like a ghost. Sarah watched in amazement as they passed within kilometers of enemy battleships without triggering so much as a scanner ping. The alien crews went about their duties, completely unaware that a human warship was sliding past their defenses. At the heart of the system stood the Nexus Prime, a massive space station the size of a small moon. It pulsed with energy as it coordinated communications across the Empire. Destroying it would be like cutting the nervous system of a giant beast. There, Sarah pointed at a section of the station where the quantum resonance readings were strongest. The main communication array, one torpedo with a quantum warhead, should collapse the entire network. "Target locked. Confirmed weapons, Officer Brooks." "Torpedo loaded and ready." Sarah hesitated for a moment. Once they fired, there would be no going back. The Empire would know that humans still had fight left in them. But it would also mean painting a target on Earth that could never be erased. "Fire," she whispered. The quantum torpedo streaked across space, invisible to sensors until the moment it struck. The explosion was unlike anything Sarah had ever seen. Reality itself seemed to twist and buckle as the quantum warhead tore through the station's superstructure. Emergency alarms wailed across the Dominion fleet as the Nexus Prime began to tear itself apart. Across the galaxy, communications went silent. Fleet commanders found themselves cut off from Central Command. Supply convoys lost contact with their destinations. The vast machine of the Dominion Empire suddenly found itself operating blind. On the bridge of the Dominion flagship Eternal Conquest, Admiral Korath stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The Nexus Prime was gone, simply erased from existence, but his sensors showed no trace of an attacking ship. Impossible, Korath growled, his scaled hide rippling with fury. Nothing could have penetrated our defenses undetected. Run a full spectrum analysis of the explosion. The awakening. 3 weeks had passed since the Nexus Prime incident, and the galaxy was burning. Admiral Korath stood in his private chambers aboard the Eternal Conquest, staring at a holographic map that told the story of his rapidly crumbling empire. Red dots marked sites of human resistance activity, and there were far too many of them. Admiral, his aide entered without permission, a breach of protocol that spoke to the desperation of the situation. We've lost contact with the fuel depot at Kepler Station. The automated distress beacon activated briefly before going silent. Korath's fists clenched. Kepler Station was supposed to be impregnable, protected by a full battle group, and positioned in a system with no habitable worlds. Yet somehow, the humans had struck there too. Was it the ghost ship again? Korath asked, though he already knew the answer. All indications point to yes, sir. No visual contact, no sensor readings, just destruction and silence. The Phoenix Rising had become the Empire's nightmare. In 3 weeks, it had struck at 7 critical installations across 4 sectors. Each attack was surgical, precise, and impossible to predict. The ship appeared, delivered devastation, and vanished as if it had never existed. Meanwhile, on the bridge of the Phoenix Rising, Commander Sarah Chen was reviewing their next target. The ship drifted in the emptiness between stars, its quantum cloak making it invisible to any sensor known to galactic civilization. The fuel depot was a success, reported Chief Engineer Martinez. We destroyed enough processed quantum fuel to power their entire 5th Fleet for 6 months. But, Commander, our own fuel reserves are getting low. Sarah nodded. They had been operating continuously for weeks, striking deep behind enemy lines, with no resupply or maintenance. The Phoenix Rising was holding together through skill, determination, and increasingly desperate repairs. How much longer can we maintain operations? She asked. Martinez consulted his displays. 2 weeks, maybe 3 if we're careful, but that's assuming we don't take any damage. Lieutenant Kim looked up from her communication station. Commander, we're receiving transmissions from across the occupied territories. The resistance movements are coordinating their activities with our strikes. Every time we hit a target, they launch simultaneous attacks across their sectors. Sarah felt a surge of pride. The Phoenix Rising hadn't just inspired individual acts of defiance. It had sparked a coordinated rebellion that was spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. Every human who had thought the war was lost was finding new hope in the legend of the ghost ship. On the Dominion world of New Carthage, Resistance leader Elena Vasquez huddled in an abandoned subway tunnel with her cell of freedom fighters. The Planetary Occupation Force had tripled security after reports of the Phoenix Rising's attacks, but that only made the human population more determined to resist. The supply convoy leaves the spaceport at 800 tomorrow, Elena explained to her team. Intelligence says it's carrying medical supplies intended for the prison camps. We hit them hard and fast, then disappear into the underground. A young fighter named Marco raised his hand. Elena, what if the Phoenix isn't real? What if it's just Dominion propaganda to justify their crackdowns? Elena smiled grimly. Then will be the Phoenix. Every act of resistance, every strike against their occupation, every refusal to surrender, that's what the Phoenix represents. It's not just one ship, it's all of us. The attack on the convoy succeeded beyond their wildest hopes. Not only did they liberate desperately needed medical supplies, but they also captured a Dominion communications device that revealed the location of a hidden listening post. Within hours, that information was transmitted to other resistance cells across the galaxy. Admiral Korath received the report of the convoy attack with barely controlled rage. The humans were becoming bolder, more coordinated. What had started as isolated acts of terrorism was evolving into a full-scale insurgency. Status report on the search for the ghost ship, he demanded. His tactical officer, a seasoned Krix warrior with battle scars covering his carapace, replied with obvious frustration. We've deployed sensor nets across 12 systems, Admiral. We've stationed patrol squadrons at every critical facility. We've even begun using quantum resonance detectors based on analysis of the destroyed stations. Nothing. The ship appears, strikes, and vanishes without leaving so much as a quantum signature. Korath turned to his science advisor. Dr. Zahn, what is your assessment of this human cloaking technology? The elderly Thylorian scientist wrung his hands nervously. Admiral, based on the energy patterns we've observed, I believe the humans have developed a form of quantum phase manipulation. Can we counter it? Theoretically, yes, but it would require a complete overhaul of our detection systems across the entire fleet. The cost would be enormous, and the time required. How long? Korath interrupted. Minimum 18 months, Admiral. Possibly longer. Korath's roar of frustration echoed through the bridge. 18 months of dealing with a phantom ship that could strike anywhere, anytime. 18 months of watching his empire tear itself apart from within. But the Phoenix Rising wasn't invincible. Commander Sarah Chen knew that better than anyone as she watched Chief Engineer Martinez work frantically to repair damage from their latest mission. A Dominion patrol had gotten lucky with a random sensor sweep, forcing them to take evasive action that had strained their quantum field generators. How bad is it? Sarah asked. Martinez wiped sweat from his forehead. The primary field generator has microfractures in the quantum matrix. I can patch it, but every jump makes it worse. One more major stress, and the whole system could collapse. Sarah felt the weight of command pressing down on her. The Phoenix Rising had become more than a ship. It was a symbol of human defiance that inspired millions across the galaxy. But symbols were fragile things, and if the Phoenix Rising was destroyed or captured, the psychological impact could shatter the growing rebellion. New transmission coming in, reported Lieutenant Kim. It's from Admiral Kane again. Sarah nodded. Kane's broadcast had become a regular occurrence, coordinating resistance activities and maintaining morale across occupied human space. But this transmission felt different somehow. Kane's weathered face appeared on screen, but there was something new in his expression, hope mixed with determination. My fellow humans, Kane began. 3 weeks ago, one ship showed us that the Empire could be hurt. Today, I have news that will change everything. The Phoenix Rising isn't alone anymore. Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. What was Kane talking about? Hidden shipyards on the rim worlds have been working around the clock, Kane continued. Using the quantum cloaking technology that made the Phoenix Rising possible, we have built a fleet. Not just one ghost ship, but dozens. The Empire thought they were hunting a single phantom. They were wrong. The transmission showed footage of sleek black ships emerging from concealed construction facilities. Each one was unique in design but shared the same light-absorbing hull and quantum field generators that made the Phoenix Rising so deadly. To our enemies listening to this broadcast, Kane concluded, your reign of terror is ending. You conquered us through superior numbers and technology, but you forgot one crucial thing about humanity. We adapt, we overcome, and we never, ever give up. Admiral Korath watched the transmission with growing horror. Not one ship, but an entire fleet of invisible warships. His empire was facing an enemy that could strike anywhere without warning, and there was no defense against them. Sir, his communications officer reported, we're receiving surrender requests from 3 Outer Rim governors. They're asking for terms. Korath's laugh was bitter. The mighty Dominion Empire, conqueror of 100 worlds, was beginning to fracture. Fear was replacing confidence. Doubt was creeping in where certainty had once reigned. But even as panic spread through Dominion space, Commander Chen faced her own crisis. The Phoenix Rising limped toward a hidden rendezvous point, where they were supposed to meet other ships from Kane's new fleet. But the quantum field generator was failing, flickering in and out of phase. "Commander," Martinez called out urgently, "I'm losing containment. The quantum matrix is collapsing." Suddenly, the Phoenix Rising materialized in normal space, its cloak failing completely. Alarms wailed as Dominion sensors throughout the system immediately locked onto their position. "Multiple contacts approaching," reported Kim. 12 Dominion cruisers, closing fast. Sarah made a decision that would define the rest of the war. Instead of running, instead of trying to escape, she turned the Phoenix Rising toward the approaching enemy fleet. "All hands to battle stations," she announced. "If we're going to be visible, let's give them something to remember." The Phoenix Rising might have lost its cloak, but it still carried the hopes and dreams of every human who refused to surrender. As it charged toward overwhelming odds, its weapons blazing, it sent a message that echoed across the galaxy. Humanity would never stop fighting. The battle was brief but legendary. The Phoenix Rising, outnumbered 12-1, managed to destroy 3 enemy cruisers before its hull finally breached. But as the ship died, something extraordinary happened.